My husband just confessed to me that he settled for me. Ugh. My husband and I met when we were in college. My best friend at the time, let's call her Tori. Her and I lived together and were best friends. We did everything together. I mean, we were like sisters. Let's call my husband Jack. Jack came to school and he was a newbie. He had 0 friends, so Tori and I decided to take him in. So the 3 of us went on to become the 3 Musketeers. He would stay over our apartment so much that we actually just asked him to move in. We would cook for each other, help each other study. We would even do each other's laundry whenever somebody needed help. I'm telling you, we were all like a tight-knit family. But I have a confession. As soon as Jack moved in, I started falling in love with him. But at the time, I never had the balls to ever tell him. You see, Tori was considered the prettier of the 2 of us. And I never resented Tori for that, but people made it very clear that she was the prettier one. And she was always the one to get hit on, never me. But one night, we all got drunk and Jack ended up kissing me. He actually even tried to hook up with me, but I said no. That night, he tried to hook up with me, but I said no. Following morning, he actually apologized. At the time, Tori had just started dating another guy. I mean, Tori had a new boyfriend every single week. At the time, I wished I could have 1 boyfriend. While she had 10, I had 0. This is when I started noticing that Jack was a little jealous of Tori's new relationship. Anytime her new boyfriend would come over, he would get in a really bad mood. I asked him if he was jealous and he said no. A few days later, we all got drunk again and Jack kissed me again. Eventually, we ended up dating and he asked me to be his girlfriend and then we got married. And that all happened within a year. Tori at this time had already gotten married to the guy that she was dating. We actually both had our weddings around the same time. At the time, I felt so lucky that I was able to marry the man that I had fallen in love with in college. I was actually afraid that I would end up alone because I wasn't as pretty as Tori. Fast forward to a year after we all got married. We actually all ended up living in the same cities as well. Tori invited us over for dinner to see their new house. During the dinner, my husband decided to have a few too many drinks. And that's when he blurted out, "I actually liked Tori before I liked you. I only married you because Tori got engaged." They all laughed at this. They clearly thought it was a joke. I laughed it off too. That's when he said in front of everyone that he only married me because he lost his chance with Tori. They all laughed. I mean, even Tori's husband found it funny. When we finally got in the car to head home, I asked him if he actually meant it. He looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I liked Tori before I liked you," and that the only reason he hooked up with me was because he was mad at Tori. I started to cry uncontrollably. This whole time I never thought he had a thing for Tori. He stops the car and he says, "But I love you," that he had no feelings for Tori anymore. I asked him why he would think that was okay to say out loud. He said he had probably had too many drinks. Yeah, it's the alcohol's fault for sure. When we got home, I asked him again if he really loved me. That's when he explained that the love he has for me is different than the love he had for Tori, and that he was actually infatuated with Tori. That our love was safe love. He said, "Just forget about what I said. It was just a joke. I just wanted to make everyone laugh." That's when I realized that he had made a joke at my cost. And it was all to make Tori laugh. Called Tori the next day and explained everything to her. That's when she confessed that her and Jack had been hooking up in college. That sometimes they would hook up when I was asleep on the couch. That they had even done it on top of the kitchen counter and in my bedroom. I told my husband, and that's when he said that I needed to let it go. That Tori was part of the past. He doesn't even touch me or kiss me. He's always angry and reproaching everything that I did. Thinking about leaving him. We don't have kids yet. What should I do?
Severely obese employee has been causing issues at my business. She told us it was medical, just found out she's a feeder. Help. Alright, so I know this is really bizarre and to be truthful I am totally stumped on my rights, what I can do as an employer in this case. I run an event planning business. I have 15 employees and rent a small office space in a building with 4 other offices in related fields. Each business owner bought the building in 2005 as joint owners because our businesses intended to work together from the start and it's been wildly successful. In 2010 I hired a woman wheel named Sarah. Sarah is a perfectly nice human being, and for years of her employment there was no issues. Full disclosure, Sarah has never been a small woman. I would estimate her weight around 230 pounds when I hired her, but that was never an issue until 2016. At the end of 2013 Sarah went through a bad divorce, and so when she met a nice guy in 2014 we were all very happy for her. She's always been a really private person, but she couldn't help herself talking about him around the office, and by the middle of 2015 they got married. Around early 2016 was when Sarah began experiencing what she told me was health issues diagnosed by a doctor. She began to absolutely balloon in weight over time. I never pushed further both because her health insurance isn't through my company insurance, it's through her new husband, and because my employees' health issues are none of my business. I assumed she had a thyroid disorder personally because my mother had something similar happen at a similar age to Sarah. Sarah keeps putting on weight and putting on weight. Our office has stairs that lead to the main door, and when Sarah could no longer properly use the stairs I paid for an elevator upgrade from our business only. We have a vintage building that had a scary older elevator to accommodate her in 2016. I also purchased her a chair for her weight rating, a desk with more space, and have also at times been very lenient on our sick leave policy for her because I was still under the impression this was a medical issue and she'd been such a good employee for years. As a good employer I wanted to make accommodations for what I thought was an embarrassing medical issue. She did request the elevator be updated and the chair, but I offered the desk and a few extra paid days off when she said she was feeling ill. Now is the part where this gets kinda bonkers, and a good time to mention I'm a part of our local kink community. None of my employees know this. As for my reputation locally, me and my husband keep it very private. I was browsing FetLife and came across a profile and instantly recognized Sarah. Her and her husband have a profile with many pictures going back to 2016 chronicling their feeder journey. Sarah doesn't have a medical condition. So now I'm furious. I've spent about $9,200 in accommodations, elevator update, chair, desk, and another $300 in paid time off for this woman thinking she was ill, and she had done this on purpose and lied to me. What can I do? Can I fire Sarah? I don't even want to look at her right now. If I fire her, can she file a disability complaint? Can I report this as fraud? Do I sue her? We do have a company lawyer, however he is on vacation for the next 2 weeks. His partner said he may be able to look at this for me, however he is swamped and said he might not be able to get to it before our usual lawyer would be back. This is why I'm coming here, as at this point I'm considering even putting her on paid leave if I have to, so I don't have to pretend like nothing is wrong for 2 weeks. Update. Also, my last post was at risk for doxing according to mods, so I'm going to be much more vague with this one on location's website data. Mods, if you want something else changed, please let me know. So, on to this weekend's events. Lots of people were saying my best bet at this point would be gathering together the evidence of sick days lining up with photo shoots, so I brought all my work files home and started to go at it. Eventually I got too emotionally tired and started crying, and so my husband took over to do some of the match-up work for me. He was already aware of what was going on, as he was present when I found Sarah and her husband's pictures online. While I had taken a bunch of screenshots, I really had avoided looking at the actual pictures out of a mix of awkwardness, anger, and fixated on the dates listed more. However, at one point my husband called me over and asked me to look at a particular set. Because of our field, my office has a large storeroom where we keep items used for setup. One of her picture sets had been taken in this storeroom over the weekend and had a title somewhere along the lines of naughty work, but not that. To give a bit of an idea of how this was even possible, my building doesn't have key locks, we have a code pad system. My employees all have the codes, and it's not uncommon for any of my employees to visit the office on a weekend to do extra work or even just grab something they forgot to take home. All of that data is saved, however, so I then pulled the keypad records from our server, and sure enough, her code was used the day before the album was posted. At this point I'm ashamed to say I lost it pretty hard and started screaming at the screen. It took a few hours for me to calm down, and then I called my lawyer on his personal cell phone, which he said is allowable in an emergency. He picked up, I gave him a short rundown, and he told me to give him a half hour to finish lunch and then he'd call me right away. I laid everything out for him. He tactfully avoided asking me how I found this profile aside from, did someone send this to you, did you have reason to look for it, or did you find it accidentally, which was nice of him, and then asked him what we could do. My lawyer has said we have absolute cause to fire her without worrying about a rebuttal of this being because of her condition, weight gain, and that the best thing will be to have security at the door Monday waiting for her with everything at her desk boxed up and a formal letter of her termination. He then suggested something I hadn't even thought about, which was needing that storeroom professionally cleaned. They used a plastic sheet but still, and how to recover the cost of that from Sarah, as well as sending off a takedown request for the album as my company logo is visible in at least 2 portions of it. He did tell me any of the accommodations I gave her without asking for a letter of disability were on me and not pursuable. At this point I'll probably just get the cost of cleaning that storeroom professionally, and getting rid of Sarah, which is fine with me. My lawyer said he will be reaching out to a friend or two for help, as he's never faced anything quite like this. I told him that I could believe that, and that I was sorry to have to bring this to him. He joked that it was going to be one hell of a case study someday, and that if I need him for anything else related to this before he's back, to give him a call. As for me, I'm going to take 3 days off work after letting Sarah go to process my hurt feelings like some of you suggested. Then I'm going to have to install a full camera system in my office space, start building a new set of HR policies, and look for someone to fill Sarah's position. A lot of people asked to know how it went Monday, and I am both glad and sad to say Sarah has been let go without much ado. I went into work early Monday morning and carefully packed and wrapped all of Sarah's stuff. She had a lot of knickknacks, deactivated her door access codes and her employee email, logged in, took her name off all our official stuff as an employee, and then was waiting with security when Sarah showed up for work. I handed her the letter, checked and cleared by my lawyer late Sunday night, and then the security guard handed her the box of her stuff. She opened the letter and quickly read through it, and I watched all the color drained from her face when she saw the date I listed for the misuse of company property. I don't want to quote the letter too heavily for privacy, but it also said that she would receive her final paycheck via mail with the $200 removed for the professional floor cleaning, and that all material produced and resulting from the misuse of company property needed to be removed from any online or physical media within 3 days, or I would have to pursue legal action. At this point Sarah started to cry, and it absolutely broke my heart, but she didn't make any argument. She didn't even say anything at all, but just handed over her employee badge, and then she went back to her car sobbing without any incident. I went back inside and broke the news to everyone else that Sarah had been caught in the misuse of company property and I had to let her go, and that a camera system would be installed this coming Friday. Everyone was pretty shocked, but I asked them to please refrain from discussing the incident as it was a confidential employment matter and they all agreed. Most of them just wanted to make sure I was okay, as apparently I looked a mess. I'm taking my 3 days off work now, at home with my husband and our dog. I checked her FetLife account late Monday night and the photo set taken in the office has been wiped. Someone suggested I take my account offline for a bit, so I did, since I don't use it much anyways. I have cried a lot the past couple days now that the anger has pretty much gone out. Overall I still feel terrible about everything, but I suspect that will die out over time. Update 4, Feeder Employee. So for those of you saying this wasn't over, I'm really unhappy to say you were right. At this point I really just wish this was over, I'm so overwhelmed and drained. Writing it all out has really helped me out, and I know you guys like knowing the ending to stories, so I hope no one minds another update. Now onto the update. Saturday, Sarah's husband showed up at our building after dark, broke into the entranceway and was in the process of trying to break into our offices when the police showed up and arrested him. Thankfully the cleaner was in the upstairs hallway and heard him smash the lock on the door in order to get into the initial entranceway, then hid and called the cops. According to the police he had a gasoline canister with him and they believe his intention was arson as retaliation for us firing Sarah. They wouldn't say much besides the base facts, however from what I gather, and also what the cleaner told me afterwards, he apparently flipped out when the cops showed up and was yelling incoherently. The police called me and had me come into the station and relay my full story. It was awful and honestly really embarrassing. At this point they said there'll need to be an arraignment which I won't be involved in, and then most likely a trial which I may be required to be a part of before we know what happens to him, but that they would update me as the case moves along when they can, like if he gets out on bail, etc. The police are charging Sarah's husband with a handful of things: breaking and entering, attempted arson, apparently assaulting an officer and a few others. However my husband said we could probably recover the damages of the busted door as well. I also got together an emergency meeting for all the building business owners and informed them of what had gone on, just the basics on Sarah's firing, not the details, and our business offered to hire a nighttime security guard for the next little while, which they agreed would be prudent. I feel really terrible about this now affecting them, all of them could have lost their livelihoods. They were really nice about everything, but I can't help feeling like crap. I sent all of this information off to our lawyer but haven't heard back from him as he's still on vacation. We've still not heard anything from Sarah either, though all of her social media is gone, not blocked. We checked through an account she would have no reason to block, as well as her account on the website with the fetish photos. I honestly have no idea if she had anything to do with this or not. So that's it. I'll see if I can update when everything is wrapped up, though some of you mentioned my lawyer may have me take these posts down, but if I'm able to, it probably won't be for a while the police and courts do their thing. Actual final update. Went to court over the husband's attempted arson. Apparently he went off and was crazy while in lockup with the police as well. We learned that apparently when questioned by the police, Sarah had no idea he was going to do this. He just said he was going to get takeout and left. He's going away for a while, so I'm not too worried there. Not everything had to come out in court according to my lawyer, and knowing Sarah had no idea this was going to happen, I chose not to talk about everything that happened beforehand when I gave my testimony. It was basically kept to I terminated his wife for being in the office after hours for personal use unauthorized. I just didn't have it in me to ruin someone's life like that by putting what happened on court record. The husband also didn't say anything about it and was very quiet and meek in court, so I think his lawyer got to him. Security has been updated at my building. All of the other owners were very nice and pitched in. We, being me and another female owner who was grateful our business didn't burn down, took a Redditor's advice and hired the cleaner for an afternoon, but instead took her to lunch, then to the spa, and then handed her pay for the hours worked. She is a very sweet woman. Someone, we don't know who, as it wasn't us, called Sarah's family in all of this. She had been estranged from them for a while. I've heard secondhand that 2 to 3 days after the incident with her husband, Sarah's father and mother showed up. They lived 12 hours away. They stayed long enough to get permission from the police for her to leave the province, packed up her things and left with her. I have no idea where she is now or what she's up to. I upped my therapy, had a lot of anxiety over court, but am doing alright now. My husband has been a superstar in all of this. This didn't blow up in the media or anything like some Redditors suggested, which terrified me, so I'm extremely grateful. My other employees seem to have pieced together something of what happened, but no one's said a peep to me. So that's it, ended with not much of a bang, and I am thankful for that. My business is alright and I'm alright, and that's really good.
Am I the asshole for letting my pregnant coworker get in trouble? I, 24 female, work an office job. I have a coworker, Ann, 28 female. Ann is currently 6 months pregnant. We have a dedicated break room where we go for lunch, as we aren't allowed to eat anything or drink anything except water bottles in the office because of the computers. We all have our own break schedules that are the same every day. Ann and I go to break together. Our lunch break is from 1:30 to 2:30. No one else is on the schedule and take their breaks earlier or later. In the break room, there's a few chairs and a couple of couches. Over the past 2 weeks, Ann has started taking naps on one of the couches during her lunch break. I know it's not my business as to what she does on her break. She can do what she wants. Last Friday, Ann and I were taking our breaks as usual. I was listening to music on my headphones, and when it was around 2:30, I got up to go back to work. I didn't really pay attention to what Ann was doing. Everyone was confused and was saying, "Where's Ann?" by around 3 o'clock because they needed her. Ann, our boss, went into the break room and Ann was still sleeping. Ann got a warning from our boss. Ann is now angry with me because our breaks end at the same time, so I should have woken her up. She said I am selfish and careless. A lot of our coworkers are on Ann's side and agree. I told Ann if she can't wake up, she shouldn't sleep during her break. She said the baby makes her tired and accused me of calling her lazy and being insensitive. Just an edit. When my break was ending, I was scrolling on my phone and listening to music. I have ADHD. When I do these things, I'm quite oblivious to my surroundings. I didn't not wake Ann because of malice.
My boyfriend has a fetish which may seem a bit weird to some. I know some girls are into this, but here the role is reversed. In the bedroom, he really likes to act like a little boy and call me mommy. For example, when going down on me, he might say something like, "Mommy tastes funny down there, but it's okay because I love my mommy." Or after he climaxes, "Thank you, mommy. I'm so happy. I love you." I mean, you get the idea. At the beginning, when he first opened up to me about this sort of thing, I found it really off-putting and even considered breaking it off because of it, but I know that it's important to him and I actually kind of enjoy playing the part, to be honest. Recently, I was out drinking with 2 of my friends. The talk shifted to guys in our sex lives. So, for some reason, I was really pretty drunk at this point. I thought it would be hilarious to tell them about the whole mommy thing we got going between us. I didn't get the reaction that I expected though. They seemed slightly disgusted and we ended up changing the topic. So, the other day, one of my friends came by to pick me up to go out together again. I say to my boyfriend that I'll be home after midnight and he says he'll see me later and that he'll be up waiting for me. At this point, my friend decides to tease him and says, feeling lonely without your mommy then? Don't worry, she'll be back soon if you're a good boy. Then you can cuddle again. At first, he didn't react at all, then he seemed terrified, ran away and actually locked himself in his bedroom. I didn't go out that night. I apologized to him numerous times. He told me that he felt embarrassed and he couldn't believe that I would tell this to someone. What if she told others? No one would ever take him seriously again and only think of him as a sexual deviant who likes to call his girlfriend mommy. Things haven't gone back to how they were. He says he's not sure if he can trust me again and I'm not sure how I can assure him that he can do so. I want to win his trust back, but I don't know how. Any ideas on how to do so and regain the trust that I lost by telling my friends about this?
Am I the asshole for sending my boyfriend a photo of me at the hospital? So, I, 20 female, was recently admitted into a hospital for a night due to a serious but non-life-threatening illness. I was completely out of it for several days, with horrible pain, before my roommate convinced me to get medical help. She took off work to stay with me in the hospital, and I cannot express how much her support has helped me, as my own family lives too far away. Now, I've been dating Sam, 19 male, for about 9 months. He knew I was sick, and so I texted him when I was first going to the hospital to update him. Since he was at work, he didn't read the message until much later. I sent him around 6 text messages, updating him with what the nurses were saying, and including a photo of me on an IV giving a thumbs up. It was my first time ever in the hospital, and I just wanted to keep the shitty situation as lighthearted as possible. He responded a few hours later with a thumbs up, and that was all. I asked if everything was all right, and he said, "Yeah, just you being in the hospital is giving me a lot of anxiety. I'd rather not see you looking like that." I told him that was okay, and I didn't message him for the rest of the night, not thinking much of it. The next afternoon, his mom called me, asking me if I was all right. She had the impression that I sent him the hospital photo after he told me not to share any information and was disrespecting his request. She then reminded me that his grandfather only died a year earlier, where Sam had to spend a lot of time in and out of the hospital, so the updates were making him grieve all over again. I apologized to her and sent him a text saying that I didn't mean to hurt his feelings, and he left me on red. My roommates think I didn't do anything wrong at all, and that he's being too sensitive/immature for involving his mom. Personally, I think this is a little unfair, as he was really close with his grandfather and struggles with anxiety. I really feel guilty, as I know how his mental health can be and never want him to suffer. So am I the asshole? So there is a quick update here. This morning I woke up to a text from Sam asking for a breakup. He told me he needed to focus on himself and that there's too much drama in this relationship. She goes on to say, "I've been with Sam through all of his anxiety attacks, holding him crying in my arms more times than I can count. He has never done the same same for me. I've made excuses over and over for this behavior. I've begged him to go to therapy, and he's always refused. The hospital stay and your comments have been eye-opening. Oh, and his mom? She reminded me to let go of my feelings and do what's best for me. I'm starting up therapy because I'll be needing the support. Oh shit, this is what the mom said. She said, let go of my feelings and do what's best for me, and that she's starting up therapy because she'll be needing the support when I'm gone. She needs therapy for the support when the girlfriend is gone.
I was looking through my family history on Ancestry.com. I found photographs of my daughter from the 1800s. I stared at the black and white photograph illuminating my MacBook screen. Then I looked up at my daughter. She was sitting across the dinner table, busily sketching in her coloring book with a crayon. My eyes wandered across the laptop's bright, sleek screen again. I studied every detail of the photograph, burning the image into my memory. The tousled, coal black hair. The doe eyes, the button nose. The beauty spot on the chin. The girl in the photograph was almost a perfect carbon copy of Freya. Of course, it makes sense that one of my ancestors would share my daughter's facial features. But still, the resemblance was uncanny. The girl in the photograph and Freya were virtually twins. The girl in question was apparently one of my great-aunts from my mom's side. I signed up to Ancestry.com earlier that day and it didn't take me long to find her in my family's archives. The life story section under the photograph helped me to fill in the blanks. When Anna Allison Seaver was born on 7th of August 1872, in Tappahannock, Virginia, her mother, Lottie, was 17. I scrolled further down the gallery section. An assortment of old photographs popped up on the screen. Dozens of them. But nearly all the photos were from when Anna was young, no older than 11 or 12. There weren't even any photographs of her in her late teens or early 20s. I found out the reason why when I discovered the death records. Name, Anna Allison Seaver. Cause of death, smoke inhalation. Date of death, 12th of January 1883. A fire occurred on the night of January 12, 1883 at Brooks Orphanage in Roanoke, Virginia. 45 children and 3 adult employees died as a result. I froze, feeling my heart sink. Chills tingled down my spine. 12th January. That was the same day my daughter Freya was born. Anna Seaver died on 12th of January 1883. Freya's birth date was 12th of January 2012. It's just a coincidence, I told myself, brushing aside that sense of unease I felt from the pit of my stomach. A disturbing coincidence, but a coincidence, nonetheless. I had yet to find out just how wrong I was. I browsed through the old archives, unraveling the short story of Anna Seaver's life, one faded photograph at a time. I found myself lingering on one of the photos. It was a photo of all the children at Brooks Orphanage. It looked like your typical class photo. The children in the front row were sitting down, and the ones in the back rows were standing. All of them had somber faces, except for Anna. Anna was on the right corner of the front row. There was the faintest hint of a smile on her face. A feeling of unease washed over me when I saw that smile. Honestly, I felt that same unease when I looked at all the other photos too. They were all equally as unsettling. Stare at each one long enough and you'd feel this suffocating darkness in the air around you. A strange symbol reappeared in some of the photos. The symbol was of an X inside a hexagon. The first time I saw the symbol was on the necklace Anna wore in one of her portraits. I saw the symbol again in the photograph where all the orphans were together. It was chiseled into the wall of the stone building that stood in the background. What does it represent? I remember thinking to myself I assumed it was just some type of emblem for the Brooks Orphanage organization. I spotted the symbol in a handful of other photos. There was a picture of Anna and a boy sitting on a bench. Stitched onto the boy's coat was a lapel pin, decorated with that symbol. There was another picture of Anna sitting on a rocking chair, posing with a doll. The wallpaper in the background had patterns of that symbol. You had to look really hard to see it. My curiosity was nudging me, inviting me to discover more. I had to learn more about this Anna Seaver. I felt like she was a puzzle I had to piece together. I wanted to spend more time researching. I could have spent hours scraping the bottom of Google's barrel for information, but Freya had school in the morning. And I had work. I closed my laptop and called it a day. Freya, it's time for bed, sweetie. Why don't you finish up that drawing? Just a second, Mom, Freya chirruped, her black crayon scratching and dancing across the paper. Nearly done. Just one more finishing touch. And voila, she sat back and admired her finished product with a smile. Freya had a smile that could light a candle. You couldn't help but smile when she smiled. It was contagious. I approached her. What masterpiece have you created for us today then, Da Vinci? It's a surprise, Mommy, she said, smiling mischievously as she pulled the paper to her chest. Close your eyes. I closed my eyes. Okay. You can open them now. When I opened my eyes, I saw something that chased the sleep out of them. My eyes widened as I stared at my daughter's drawing. It was a stickman drawing of her and me standing outside our house, with smiles on our faces. There was a big yellow sun in the sky. She even colored the sky blue. It almost looked like a drawing you'd expect from a 10-year-old child. Almost.
My entitled mother steals my make-a-wish moment by forcing me to do what she wants instead of what I want. And to this day, I'm still upset with her about what she did. Here's what happened. So today, I am 13 years in remission from cancer. I had a very aggressive type with less than 20% chance of survival for the first 5 years. As I was 16, I qualified for Make-A-Wish. I'd played around with a bunch of potential ideas, as well as some destination vacations, meeting my favorite band, getting electronics, all kinds of things were on the table. Once the idea of traveling somewhere warm came up, my entitled mother was convinced that was what was going to happen for my wish. The discussion of Barbados came up, so that's what she set her mind to. However, I was still on the fence, and after discussing it with my correspondent at Make-A-Wish, I wanted to meet my favorite band instead of going to Barbados. We would not have been able to go to the Caribbean for the trip, simply because of the costs, but we still could have gone somewhere warm and out of the country. For context, we live in northern Canada, and the winter times are still very, very cold. There was talks of Florida, California, or even Hawaii as a destination to meet them at. I even wrote a letter directly to this band, explaining how listening to them helped me through my treatments, explaining how one song in particular was really special to me, and my correspondent had mailed it out to the managers, and they were going to begin preparations for the band to get time scheduled for the wish. When I told my mom what I wanted and the plans to meet the band, she went nuts. She went off about how she deserved this trip as much as I do because she was there for me the entire time, and that if I wanted to do anything besides going to Barbados, I could find another adult to supervise the trip because neither her nor my stepdad would be joining me, all because it wasn't what she wanted. She then told me to pack my bags and that I would be staying at my dad's place until. So as a result, I spent over a month at my dad's house. Meanwhile, the correspondent was trying to convince me to go through with what I really wanted, all during this time period when I'm forced to live with my dad. But as a teenager, I eventually caved, and I let my mom have what she wanted. Now, my parents did make a compromise with me at the time, and told me that they would drive me to their concert in Toronto if I had paid for the entire trip. And foolish 17-year-old me thought it was a great idea. I get to see the band in concert, and my parents get to be happy in the end with their trip. When it came time to see this band in concert, it cost a lot of money. My parents complained the entire time, but you know what? At least I got to see them in concert. On the occasional time where the conversation of the trip to Barbados comes up, my mom likes to paint herself as the victim after all these years. She would say stuff like, "Could you imagine if you'd gone through with it and we'd missed out on going to Barbados? You would have gone with somebody else and left us behind. I would have never forgiven you if you'd done that." To this day, I am still a huge fan of that band. They were on a hiatus for a while, but came back, and this whole situation really stuck in my mind, especially when I see them performing on shows and their 2 tours they've done post-hiatus. Yes, I saw them in concert, and it was a great time, but I could have physically met them and gone to the concert through Make-A-Wish while traveling to another country, all without having to pay out of pocket for the experience. And this is all because my mom felt entitled to making my wish about her, rather than the actual recipient of it. I understand that she didn't care to meet the band herself, but there could have been many opportunities available aside from just doing that. I nearly didn't make it during treatments. It should have never been a question of whether or not we're going to do what I want for my wish, especially with the extremely high chance that my cancer could come back.
Storytime on when my father asked me for explicit pictures of myself. Now, I won't lie, this one is going to need a bit of a backstory. I grew up with my grandmother because my mother was and still is a drug addict to this day, who is not active in my life. My father was simply a deadbeat, but he did show up for the first time when I was around 15 years old, claiming that he wanted to establish a relationship with me. He stuck around for a month and a half before disappearing. Yeah, I didn't see or hear from him again until I went to college. He ended up randomly calling me out of the blue, asking if we could go to dinner and talk more about building a relationship and mending the distance between us. So I ended up going, even though I I didn't want to, but a part of me felt like I just didn't want to go because I was still angry at him for being a crap father. Thanks to my anxiety, I ended up showing up pretty early, but he somehow still managed to get there before me, which made me feel like, wow, he's really invested, I should give him a shot. But the moment I sat down, he started this weird pity party for himself, claiming that he wasn't in my life because my mother was insane. Well, I can't say he was wrong, but mind you, he and his family were keenly aware that my mother dropped me off at my grandmother's house when I was 3 months old and never looked back. And at that point of us talking, I was in college. Even so, he finally opens up to say that he went to the doctor recently and things were not looking good. According to my father, they were running some tests, and he was afraid that he might not be okay, so he felt like mending things with his only child was the most important thing at the time. Now, I won't lie, I thought it was BS, but I couldn't tell if I thought it was BS because it was, or because I was just angry. So I accepted his apology, and agreed to attempt to build a relationship again. But, shocker alert, he disappeared again for 3 months, and I tried everything to get in touch with him, because I thought he had died. I ended up contacting his sister via Facebook, and she finally responded to tell me what his test results said. According to her, he came back with a clean bill of health. So naturally, the reason he stopped talking to me was because he felt like since he was healthy, there was no reason to mend anything between us. Fast forward 6 months later, his sister contacts me claiming that he was begging her for my contact information so that we could get back in touch again. I was going to say no, but instead, I decided to give him an ultimatum that if he jumped out of my life again, he was not going to be allowed back in. He then claimed that he was absent for so long because he was on the brink of being homeless and needed $600 in order to stay afloat. Me being a college student who got a refund check, I didn't mind giving him the money, but in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have. Either way, he ended up calling me that night, claiming that he missed me and that he was sorry for being a deadbeat. I can't lie, I thought that was a turning point for us, because he had actually never apologized for that before. And then he asked me to send him a picture of myself, so I took a regular selfie, super cute, and he responded with, and I quote, "Can you send me another one? I can't see with all of your clothes on." The woman was too stunned to speak, so naturally I hung up on him. Fast forward 4 years later, I hadn't heard from him since that last conversation, so I wrote him a letter. The letter I wrote and mailed to him was basically telling him that I forgave him. I even went into explicit detail of all the things I forgave him for in case he forgot. Even after sending the letter and getting confirmation that he received it, I still didn't hear from him for another 2 years, and you'll never believe what he said. When my father ended up calling me, he started off by saying that he didn't appreciate my letter, and even more so, he didn't appreciate the excerpt I wrote about him in my book that I published about my life. Now, the book was my first publication, and I didn't have an editor, so it kinda sucked a little bit, but it was the truth nonetheless. I kindly informed him that if he wanted to write a book and change the narrative, then he could do that. But considering he couldn't keep his own lies straight, it was definitely not recommended. When he started going on a tangent about how he demanded respect from me, I laughed and told him that the conversation was over, and that if he was waiting on respect from me, he would be holding his breath until he died. At that point, I had firmly decided that my father was no longer a part of my life, which wasn't really hard considering he wasn't really a part of my life in the first place. A couple of weeks later, his sister ended up messaging me on Facebook, claiming that my father once again went to the doctor and got some bad news. I sarcastically asked her what it was this time: a heart attack, a stroke, a sudden realization that he was a piece of shit, because I was so fond of these little cliffhangers that she liked to leave me every few years. She, however, did not appreciate my snark and claimed that I needed to respect him, stop calling him by his first name, and forgive him already. I won't lie to you, I lost my cool. I flat out told her that she should be ashamed of herself. As a mother, she was defending her brother for being a deadbeat father, not to mention defending the fact that he was low-key a pedophile, and that I'm pretty sure they've known he's been this way his entire life, and instead of helping him, they've enabled him, and I was not interested in joining their team to do that. I kindly told her that she was now blocked, and I'd appreciate it if she didn't send me any more messages from him, because unlike most people, I believe in shooting the messenger, because it sends a message, doesn't it? Either way, I've enjoyed the radio silence for the past few years. That is, until last year, when one of my father's exes called me, and you'll never believe what she told me. So my dad's ex ended up calling me. We'll call her Rhonda. Rhonda tells me that my dad and her have been in contact because he reached out to her. Turns out he's not just toxic enough to keep intruding on my life, he has to intrude on hers as well. Rhonda and I went on to have a long conversation because I actually like Rhonda. She's a pretty cool person. She goes on to tell me that my dad called her, telling her that he's doing great and that he's even expecting a new child on the way with a girl that's younger than me. I can't say I was surprised about her being young, but what did surprise me was the fact that she was expecting a child by my dad simply because my dad isn't able to have children. I myself was a miracle. I suppose he should have named me Hercules, because my dad had a football injury in high school that was said to have prohibited him from ever being able to have children. So I asked Rhonda, do you think the child is his? She says no. I agreed. But Rhonda went on to say that my dad was over the moon about it. In fact, he was telling her things like, I can't wait to restart, and I can't wait to get it right this time. I want to start this out by saying that my father was in prison the first 2 to 3 years of my life, so I figure him being there for a child from the beginning all the way to adulthood may be good for him. But what he said still still made me feel some type of way. How can you restart when you never started to be a father in the first place? But I digress. Perhaps this child could teach him to be a decent human being. And to my shock, she laughed. I mean, a gut-wrenching, genuine laugh. So naturally, I asked her what was so funny. She says to me, I don't know how good of a father he's going to be considering he's in jail. Do you get deja vu, huh? When my father's ex told me that he was in prison, I was stuck. And I mean stuck to the point where all I could do was laugh, because what else was there to say? When I finally did get around to catching my breath, I asked what happened. According to Rhonda, my father was in prison for assault. How did he land in this predicament, you ask? Well, it turns out my father was lying about more than what I thought he was. He was telling Rhonda, as well as his family, that he was paying my college tuition, that he bought me a car, that he was paying my bills, etc. Mind you, I put myself through school and I'm still paying off student loans. I bought my own car. I've always had a job since I was 14, and he borrowed $600 from me. Yet he was paying for all this stuff while also living with his parents. If 2 + 2 is 4 and 5 + 5 is 10. But I digress. I've learned to stop being surprised by the lies my father has told. When I see something new, I'll throw $1 at it. But because of his lies, he attracted the attention of this new girl that he was dating. The one that's younger than me? Yeah. Apparently he was spending all kinds of money on her that he didn't actually have. So, instead of her telling him that she had a boyfriend, she continued to let him lavishly spend money on her, while also tricking him into believing that he was in a relationship with her. Fast forward a few months down the line, and she's pregnant. My father is over the moon, thinking that he gets a chance to restart, only for the girl's boyfriend to approach him after the baby is born and tell him that both the baby and the girl belong to him, and that my father is the one that's intruding. And sadly, my father could not handle this, so he and the girl's boyfriend get a little physical, and my father ends up in prison. I wish I had a time machine. Now with the I wish I had a time machine.
Am I the asshole for getting upset with my husband after he told me nothing will change while I'm pregnant? So me, 26 female, and my husband, 28 male, who I'll call Jake for this story, have been together for 5 years and married for 3. We have recently started trying for a baby, as we both felt like that was the next step in our life together. And 3 weeks ago, I got a positive test back. We were really happy and told our families, and now my mom and mother-in-law want to throw a big baby shower for us. It was just super good news all around. Well, 2 nights ago, me and Jake were getting ready for bed when he reminds me to go through the house and make sure all the lights are off. Now, he can be a little lazy at times, and it has become a nightly routine for me to make sure all the lights are off that he leaves on before we go to bed. I wasn't feeling very well and asked if he could just do it since he wasn't doing anything, and he was literally standing by the door. He then tells me, no, this is what is expected of you every night. I was just a little hurt, but I didn't want to fight with him, so I just did it. When I came back, Jake goes on this very long and unprovoked rant saying things like, just because you are pregnant does not mean anything will change, and you are still expected to cook, clean, and do all the chores every day, because how can you be expected to be a mother if you can't handle a little work? He wasn't yelling or anything, he was just talking to me quietly as if I was 2 inches tall. I was shocked because I had never heard him say anything like this. This rant went on for about 30 minutes before I interjected and asked, well, what do you plan on doing to help me with all of this? He then got extremely defensive, saying he works his ass off at his job to provide for me and what is going to be our future children. For context, I don't work at the moment. My job was not paying enough to justify me going in, so I am a full-time college student. He ended up saying that it doesn't matter how I feel physically or mentally, it's a mother's job to push through, and if he helped and babied me, I wouldn't be a good mother. I got extremely upset and started yelling, and I said that I wish I would have known this is how you felt before I got pregnant with your baby. There was a moment of silence before he started crying, and he left for the night to stay at his mother's house. What a bitch. He hasn't been back yet, and my mother-in-law and sister-in-law have called me berating me and saying I broke Jake's heart with what I said and I need to apologize immediately, and until I do, he isn't coming home. I don't know how to feel. So, am I the asshole for yelling at my husband after he said he isn't helping me with anything during the pregnancy because it's a mother's job to deal with it?
Am I the asshole for cheating on my husband with his brother? My husband and I have been married for 3 years, but my husband's always been very boring and kind of bland. The crazy thing is that I was the one that chased him and wanted to be in a relationship. I was 20 years old when we met, and I met him through a friend. He was kind of charming when I first met him, but what I really liked about him was that he was a doctor, he owned 2 houses and a beach house, and he seemed like a really responsible guy. Before him, I only ever met broke guys, so when I met him, I was like, oh my god, this guy could be it. Oh, and the other thing is that he's extremely shy, so he was not about to make a move on me or even talk to me. So I convinced my friend to invite us all out to dinner so that I could get a chance to talk to him. Throughout the entire dinner, he was so shy he basically avoided me. But then after the dinner, he told my friend that he thought I was cute. So I knew that I could win him. After that, we only saw each other at friends' parties. So on one occasion, I decided to just throw myself at him. I kissed him and I waited for his response. He said, "Thank you." He finally asked me out on a date and it was okay. I could definitely see me living my life with him. Obviously a boring one, but you know, whatever. We were engaged for 6 months and we started living together after that. He basically lets me do whatever I want with his money, and he also helped me open up my own business. So no, I'm not just living off of his dime, okay? Fast forward to quarantine, his brother came to live with us. And this is when things got really complicated. His brother is the total opposite, makes me laugh and we have so much fun together. Like, really good fun. So his brother moved in with us during quarantine. And as soon as he moved in, I was finally laughing and having fun. Like I said, my husband was really boring and shy. So you can imagine, like, even in bed, he was super boring. Like, he never wanted to do it. And if I ever asked him to, he would just say he was tired. So I got really sick of that. When his brother came to live with us, he would make jokes, we would laugh. He basically made me feel alive again. Here's how things went down with him. My husband loves to go golfing with his golfing buddies, so he would leave every single day for like 2 to 3 hours just to do that. So I was pretty much all by myself all day. He would also spend a lot of time where he worked at a hospital. On the other hand, his brother was home all the time. He and I would watch movies. He even started helping me out with my online business, and soon we became really good friends. I would tell him everything. I would even complain about how boring his brother was. One night we decided to have pizza and wine, and between us we both had 3 bottles. Throughout the movie we kept laughing, and every time I would just get closer and closer to him. Eventually I was sitting right next to him. That's when we look at each other and we just started macking on. It was uncontrollable passion and I didn't know how to stop, and we ended up doing it. As we were making out on the couch, I just kept thinking how much better my life would be with him as opposed to his boring brother. One thing led to another and we ended up doing it, and it was magical. And then every single day after that, we would kind of just smile at each other. When my husband was at home, he would steal kisses from me. If I was sitting on a chair, he would come by and quickly tickle my shoulder. I was living like a full-on romance novel. Of course, my boring husband didn't even notice. I was suddenly happy all the time. One day I asked my husband if he had noticed the change in me, and he said, "You're being silly. What are you talking about?" And right there, that confirmed that my husband didn't even care that I was suddenly happier. He wasn't even bothering to ask why. Either way, his brother was staying with us until he found his own house. And guess what? He ended up moving in 2 houses away from ours. By the way, he also owns his own businesses, so he's really wealthy. He's tried to convince me to leave his brother, but I don't know. Sometimes I think my husband doesn't really like women, but I'm not sure. I know you guys will think it's easy to just get a divorce, but I don't want to break his heart either. But at the same time, I want to be happy too. What should I do? Help!
I was in a very bad car accident about 3 years ago. A drunk driver ran a stoplight, cut off a semi-truck, which then crashed into me, sending me crashing into 2 different cars and then ultimately into an embankment. My car was completely mangled and my legs were crushed, completely destroyed, and it had to be amputated. I also lost a couple fingers, the tip of one and all of the other. I'm also left with some gnarly scars that used to bother me, but I'm learning to deal with them. I got a couple different insurance payouts and some pain and suffering money in addition to my medical bills being paid, and with my money I purchased a custom-made leg to take the place of the one I lost. When I have pants and shoes on, you can hardly tell unless you're really looking. I still limp, but some days I don't have as pronounced a limp. Earlier today, I went to the store with my boyfriend, my sister, her girlfriend, and our mother. I had to learn to drive with my left foot, but I'm really good at it now. I also bought a new car with my money and had to go through a ton of therapy to get past my PTSD, but I'm doing well there now as well. So I drove us, and because of my injuries, in addition to my leg, I also have chronic hip, neck, and back pain and some issues with my lungs from the time I spent intubated in a medically induced coma that led to pneumonia. I have a handicap placard for my car. I have trouble walking without getting tired, so it really helps to park close to the door. Today I did so and unknowingly took the space from someone who was circling back around for it. Apparently the man had been looking for a close space and had missed the one I took and went down and around. He was still on the other aisle when I pulled in, so I didn't cut him off or anything and had no way of knowing that he wanted the spot. He parked in a yellow striped zone and got out and immediately began confronting me about stealing a space from him who actually needed it. How I'm just some kid who has no respect for those who are truly sick and suffering. He then ordered me to move. My group was just urging me to walk away, but this has happened before and once the police were even called. I'm sick of people thinking that just because I'm young, I don't have a legit need for a little extra consideration. I said, okay, and went to the car and got in like I was going to drive off. I was wearing a skirt and leggings, so it wasn't quite obvious at first, but when I sat down, I took my leg off and showed it to the man, including my stump. I then asked him if it was okay if I still parked there. He walked away calling me disgusting and rude and said I could have just told him and I made him look stupid. My group was embarrassed and said that I made things awkward because there was a crowd. So, am I the asshole for taking my leg off and making someone look dumb and feel uncomfortable?
Story time! And this happened to me like 40 minutes ago. So I was driving home tonight and my apartment building is on a street that's a dead end. So I'm gonna make this hair clip my car. So I was driving onto my street. So if this is my street and it like ends there, my apartment building is here. So I was coming with my car here and I turned there onto the street and I parked about here. So all I had to do was walk from here to here, which is like 10 meters. And that's like, what, 30 feet or something. So it's really, really close. All I had to do was walk there. So I parked my car, I got out, and as I started walking towards the entrance of my building, a man that was actually close to my building saw me. And suddenly, he started running towards me. And as he was running, he was yelling, "Shut your mouth! Shut your mouth!" So I, luckily, was still close to my car. So I jumped back in and I locked the doors. And just as I did that, the man arrived at my car. So because I was already inside, he went to the front of my car, so here, and he put his hands on the hood of my car. And he was like, "Get out of the car! Open the window! Get out of the car!" So I was sat there and I knew what I had to do was put the car in reverse and back out of there to go back from where I came from because that's the only street out. So I put my car in reverse and his hands are still on the hood and he's still yelling at me. And I reverse, and as I'm doing that, he like follows my car and is like, you know, like following my movement with the car. So I was like, okay, well, I have to like really quickly like turn to go that way because if he goes to block the street, I'm stuck. Like I literally can't get out. So he's following me, his hands are on the hood of my car. I quickly turn and I get out of the street that way and I managed to get out. I then had to drive around for about 25 minutes, waiting for him to leave my street so that I could park my car and go home. I'm just really tired. Like, I just really want to be able to go home without that happening. I mean, I know that doesn't happen every day, but still, like, it happens often enough that it's really frustrating. I mean, not only is it obviously scary, but it's just like, why can't we just go home without being threatened?
To top this, the other day a customer came up to me and he's like, "Hey, I think this is broken. It's way too light. It's leaking." And I was like, "Okay, I'll take a look at it." I took a look. I grabbed the item. You know what the item was? It was canned air. It was air in a can. Okay, and he's like, "Yeah, it's broken." I looked back at him and I was like, "Oh wait, no, it's just air in a can. There's nothing but air. It's not supposed to be heavy or anything." And he looks back at me and he's like, "Are you trying to scam me into buying something that's broken?" And I was like, what am I supposed to say to that? I was like, "Oh, no, there's nothing else but air. It's not supposed to be heavy. It's not broken or anything." And he looks back at me and he's like, "I'm gonna go somewhere where they don't try to get me to buy broken things." And he walked away. He walked away. Like, what am I supposed to say? It was air in a can. It was canned air.